How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I want to go and try out. There's two mods here. They're kind of similar. This one is called the Azov Bear, and it's like an 8-wheel articulated thing. You can see it's got a very long rear chassis. You can fit a lot of stuff on it. I've got a repair thing, a logging crane, and a medium log carriage, and I'm still able to have a medium log trailer. This one, sorry, that little red one is called the Azov. Is it Barbos or Barbos? Not sure how you pronounce it. It's basically the same thing, it's just a 6-wheeled version, so it's got 4 rear wheels instead of 6. Yeah, obviously a shorter chassis because of that, so it's essentially the same truck, but take out one rear axle and that repair body thing that the loaf is sat on top of. Of course, I'm bringing a goddamn horse for a vehicle with me. And yeah, the mission I'm going to do is called A Bigger Boat. Oh, sorry, I lost, for some reason, the whole bit of footage where I got the map is missing from this first bit, but I'm on drowned lands. I'm just going to drive along the main road to the main quarry entrance, like the gateway that we all use, like you then appear on like the main roadway in a quarry. And the reason I'm bringing this various setup is, well, I'm obviously testing out like these two Azovs. I need 3 medium logs. I wanted to do it in one run. The fact that this can have a medium log carriage and a trailer means I can do 2. I could have actually done 3 trailers, or sorry, like 3 logs with just this first Azov, because I could have then filled another medium logging trailer and winched it behind me, but one, they're a bit sketchy when you winch them behind, especially the medium log trailers. They tip very easily. Well, they're like, I suppose the long log trailer's kind of half attached to your truck. But as you can see on the Azov Barbos, I've got a loaf on there with a what's it called, like the radar trailer, the exploration unit or whatever it's called. Because I've got most of, if not all of, drowned lands, yeah, kind of uncovered. I've got practically nothing on quarry uncovered. I'll show you once we get to quarry, like the route I took and all the rest of it. I have still got all the footage of that. But that was my idea behind it. That's why I wanted to do that. It was only just for me personally, kind of a 2-in-1 situation, just to make sure I was taking the right roads and everything, because I don't know quarry that. I know like the top half of quarry pretty well, but yeah, the bottom end of it, like where the shipwreck is, that's basically where we've got to drive, to the shipwreck. There was 2 missions I could have done. There's 2 on quarry anyway. I could have took medium logs to the actual quarry itself, and I thought that'd be a little bit easy because by the time I've driven like through drowned lands, which is mainly main roads, there is some mud and that, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it'd almost be over then by the time I'm at quarry. So I figured I'd make it a little bit more difficult and go down like the length of the quarry map basically. Yeah, I mean, first impressions, like it's hauling quite a lot of weight and everything at the minute. There's a little bit of wheel spin going on, nothing too crazy. I think the first thing you'll sort of notice is I'm understeering quite a lot now. That was an issue a couple of times tonight with it. It's not the end of the world, it's not the worst thing. You got to kind of bear in mind that it might happen. The tyres I've got on are like the biggest, it's the right at the bottom of the mud tyres. And it does say, I think they're excellent on every other terrain, but they might be good or something on the roads. Either way, as you can see, I'm now driving on pavement. Yeah, they don't feel the most grippy, particularly the front end. I think because there's like 3 lots of axles at the back end, and that's where like the wood is. If you can see, like that medium log carrier is actually still on my chassis. That sits quite far over the back of those 3 rear axles, so that's almost levering me to the point where there's not a hell of a lot of weight actually sat on the front. It's probably good, to be honest, that I've got the goddamn professional sat on the roof, because that'll be adding a little bit of weight that'll be kind of pushing down on the front end of it. So I don't know, maybe a weighted bumper could solve that. Like I said, I have got a fully loaded truck. I'm also winching another truck behind me, which is obviously got weight now pulling on my trailer, which is the back end of the chassis. So there's a lot of factors that are kind of making it a little bit less weighty at the front end than you would like, but yeah, for the most part it's going alright. Maybe I probably could just wedge a loaf, kind of bridge the wheels over the actual cab, and then it really would be right at the front. But the reason I've brought all this setup in general, this whole road train I've got going on, in theory I can make it there in one trip, practically guaranteed, because I've got all the logs I need. But even if I tipped everything in this entire road train, my orange loaf has got an autonomous winch, so he can guaranteed get himself back to his wheels. He can then rescue the custom paint job loaf, which has the advanced winch that'll be able to flip all of these, and this one's got the logging crane as well, so it could reload itself and the trailers, etc. So yeah, it's like a bulletproof road train where I've got 2 horses with me, and yeah, they'll make sure I get there no matter what. Obviously, I was hoping that wouldn't happen. I wasn't particularly feeling in the mood to kind of roll the whole train and then have to reload it all up and everything, but you never know on these games. As for like now, once we're actually up into the gears and it's ticking along, the understeer is not the end of the world. Again, I'm already got like slightly used to it, so steer a little bit early, feed a bit of understeering. I tend to find like if you fully steer, so you're fully articulated, it understeers a lot more then. If you kind of half feed it in and you're not full lock or anything, or like full articulation, it's not as bad. You can see there I was trying to be a little bit more. It's not as easy to do it on like I'm on a PS4 remote. I'm sure if you had like a steering wheel set up and everything, it'd be a lot easier to kind of feed 60% steering in or something. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. Like I said, a few minutes, get used to it, and well, it was ticking along quite nicely. Fuel wise, it's got decent enough fuel, I would say. It's not an absolute nutter of a drinker, so it did the job. I've also, that's part of the reason why on this one I've got the loaf on the roof, because obviously I've got the repair body on this, which is pretty cool, so that's plenty of repairs. But fuel wise, yeah, I've only got what I've got, so if I bring the loaf, and then on the one behind me as well, the Azov Barbos or whatever it is, that's also got like the loaf's got a roof rack, so that's spare fuel. The prototype radar trailer thing has also got 120 litres in it, which is enough for 6 goes with the radar, and I wasn't particularly planning on 6 goes with the radar. Long story short though, I ended up getting rid of the loaf on the back one. All it is because if you could sort of see the way I had it threaded through, I needed the loaf to have the exploration trailer, but when you've got a trailer on a Scout, you can't pack it, whether it's on a trailer or obviously I just sit them on top of trucks to save a bit of room. So I just kind of had the loaf on the rear Azov, sort of free floating. I put the trailer in the rear logging hammock thing to try and lock it in place. It was holding the loaf in place pretty well, considering it wasn't attached to the roof. Obviously, because I'm in a road train situation as well, I can't have a winch to it and kind of keep it anchored to the roof. Yeah, long story short, eventually it started bumping off. It fell off to the side, and later on it was just, I ended up, some of my logs unpacked on the rear trailer, so yeah, in the end it was better to cut it loose. But you can see at the minute, I don't believe it's actually touching the floor at the minute. I think it's kind of resting on the tyres. I mean, these tyres I chose were the both Azovs really. They've got like a pretty cool looking set, I think, anyway, of chain tyres. And I was tempted to use them, but to be honest, these sort of custom type muds are massive, they sit very wide, and yeah, some of the other tyres certainly like are about half the width of these tyres, and overall you sit a lot kind of narrower. I mean, if I didn't have these tyres on, I probably would look at other options than having that loaf sat on the roof, but yeah, because the tyres sit so nice and wide, you can see there's a good bit of articulation, not just like the left and right articulation, but the body, like the cab can sort of flex really far to the left while the body starts leaning quite far to the right, and as you can see there, even when it is tipping, it's pretty stable. Because bear in mind, if you do go on this mission, it's not too bad going from like the Drownlands garage to Quarry, but as you're going to go down the length of the Quarry map, there is a lot of sections that make you tip quite a lot. You can see there again though, the understeer was kicking in a fair bit. Sometimes, to be honest, I was for the most part keeping it pinned and just trying to wait for it to kind of catch a bit of grip and get back out of the understeer. Every now and then though it doesn't quite do it in time and you kind of understeer into a tree a little bit. Wondering what's going on there. Look at the loaf, goddamn horse. Taking out them trees, they were on the list. They're not anymore. On the obituary list. See again, trying to swerve out of the way of that tree. As the gearbox isn't too bad, it's I don't know, if I could, like, I wouldn't want it to go rapid or anything, because when this thing's wound up to full speed, it isn't bad. And like I said, I have got a road train, a lot of logs loaded and all the rest of it. I've got about the heaviest towing situation really you're going to put one of these things in. Yeah, maybe if I could dial it up 10% or something top speed, but other than that, it's like I said, it's ticking along pretty nicely. I think one thing is, like, and this tends to happen with a lot of vehicles, the Kolob, or both of them really. Oh well, the long nose Kolob is more obvious because it hasn't got diffs always on. Because this hasn't got diffs always on, and it's got a lot of rear axles that are all fairly close together. Like, say the middle axle out of the 3 rear axles can find it quite easy to bleed power sometimes, just because there's so many other tyres around it supporting the weight, it's not very planted itself into the floor. And you can just see it every now and then between all the rear axles, like every now and then one's spinning a bit faster than the others, and it's kind of, yeah, bleeding a percentage of your power. Obviously going low range, like high-low with the diffs on, is good, but you're just limited to like the low top speed anyway of like the low range gears. But yes, overall though, looking pretty good. I'm liking the look of the old road train. The articulation as well, I think it's not as bad as, like, I don't think it was as bad as the Azov Antarctic or the Cat 745C, but it's not as strong as the articulation that's on Fox's Azov Iceberg, and yeah, overall there was once or twice tonight whereas I like kind of bounced down into a bit of a hill. As my front tyres hit the ground, it can impact, like, it'll steer my cab for me, and generally it's not the way you want to steer it either. You can also get situations with weak articulation where if I'm trying to brake as I'm going around a corner, the weight of the rear end of my truck and the trailer, etc., is kind of it's pushing on the articulation, and it's forcing me to almost jackknife sometimes. That's one of the reasons that, yeah, I've never been that keen on the articulation in this game, because they've not made it strong enough. The only exception I would say though, yeah, is Fox's Iceberg. 2 reasons. One, I think he has increased the strength of the articulation, but he's toned the articulation down. It also has front wheel steering and rear steer and a little bit of articulation, so they all work very well together. But yeah, that just seems to benefit from it. It's a bit like I sort of said, if you feed 60% steering into this, I guess that's where, like, Fox's Iceberg, he's kind of limited it to where you can only apply 60% of the articulation, so it never gets to the point where it's trying to jackknife. So anyway, go through the gateway, and this is the route I ended up taking. I got this footage at the end of the mission, because all this was like pitch black and undiscovered at this point, hence why I brought the loaf. Yeah, take the first left, go through the logging station, take this left as you're approaching it, and there in the ground there's like loads of logs sort of in watery, you'll sort of know where it is. Go past that drilling site I think we set up there, and originally I did want to go down that route, but I accidentally drove past it, so I kind of ended up going a little bit longer down here. It probably worked out quite nice, because that other road looks quite wiggly. Driving along the coast, it was actually a fairly straight run, which is not a bad thing for a road train. And then yeah, the shipwreck thing is right down there at the bottom of the map. So we'll see how that goes. And again, setting off this thing, it's still pulling pretty nicely. I had a little go in the Rhino as well, the Club Rhino, and I will do a little video on that at some point. I've been meaning to do it. Part of the reason I was considering taking it out tonight, but like I said, I needed 3 logs. With the Rhino, you've got a medium log cradle thing on the back of it, but I couldn't also have a trailer. So even if I bought 2 of them, and yeah, I'd only be able to run 2 lots of logs for this mission, so it just wasn't a good fit. That's what she said. Yeah, so I thought I'll attempt these in the end. To be honest, they look pretty cool. They're fairly new to the game. What was the first one? The Azov Bobic. That was pretty good. I think in some ways, like, having a bit of a longer trucks probably benefits the articulation a little bit. It can hinder it in some ways as well. But the Bobic was definitely, like, that was like the smallest version of this, where it only had 1 front axle and 1 rear axle. And yeah, there's I don't know, there's a lot of articulation. There's not much truck each end to kind of operate it. This one's kind of very planted at the whole rear end of the chassis. But then, like I said, it gets to a point where maybe by the time I've now got 3 axles on the back, it can cause the front end to understeer. Maybe that rear one, the Azov Barbos or whatever, is probably like a pretty decent compromise. It's got a big enough chassis to kind of be in control of the articulation, but not so big that it's going to cause it to massively understeer. But I wanted to drive this one as the lead truck, because, I don't know, it's bigger, it looks better, it looks pretty cool, it's pretty unique. It's pretty cool how much stuff you can actually fit on it, because particularly that I was able to get the repair thing on, and like the log crane and the log cradle. I thought it would have made me sacrifice the log crane to have both the other things, but yeah, not complaining. I could also, by the way, put a log crane on the Azov Barbos behind, but it was better to leave it off because I needed that loaf kind of wedged in the right place and all the rest of it, and still have a trailer on the back of it. Got a little bit sketchy down there. If you do use that route in the future, I'd probably split your road train and drive down there separately, because it's a very steep hill, and that truck behind me was kind of just rolling and slamming into the back of me and kind of forcing me down that hill a little bit more eagerly than I would have probably done for myself. Now I noticed this little thing. Obviously you saw the trailer tip to the side. I lost my logs but managed to tip the trailer back up. It'll only let me unpack and pack the trailer. It's not letting me pack myself, but detach the trailer, then click pack, and then it worked, and then just go back to the trailer. Not too sure why that is. I suppose it's technically a bug. I don't see why it would supposed to be like that, but yeah, it's not the end of the world. It would have been more the end of the world if it just wouldn't let me repack them. Bloody tree stumps in the way, but we've seen get out of the way of them. And again, this thing is 71-inch tyres, I believe it's got, and it obviously, as you can see, sits very nice and high on its suspension as well. So, to be fair, tree stumps weren't really the biggest killer of it. The loaf's he's hanging on, but yeah, it keeps slipping off a bit. To be honest, I could have actually hoovered him up back on the roof pretty easy, except the exhaust that you can see the left-hand one, there's one at the right-hand side as well. It's kind of skewered into the loaf and is not allowing me just to pull it back up to the roof very easily. But overall, it wasn't the best way, or it wasn't the most practical. I probably, strictly speaking, would have been better off getting like another one of these, the Azov Bear. That would have had enough length to it to fit like the loaf and the prototype trailer and still have a log-in trailer as well. See, a little bit like cutting through here. I even went back, I checked to see if the Azov Barbos was, if its engine was on, because it felt like I wouldn't go as far as say struggling, just, you see what I mean, a bit slow. You can see the front wheel spinning quite a lot, that's why I just stuck in the end stick it in high-low and put the diffs on. And it's going a bit better, at least it's a little bit more, I don't know, like it's actually doing it rather than just wheel spinning like mad all the way through that yard. The loaf at the back is hitting just about everything there is to be hit. Yeah, there's a couple of mods I've got to try as well recently. There's those Mustang trucks I've added. Fortunately, I could say the same for these two mods as well, is they don't seem to use a lot of RAM space, because recently the only thing I've done is turned off my heavy wrecker for a little bit. Just because, again, like that obviously uses a lot of RAM space. And yeah, I was still able to turn both these on. I turned the Mustang ones on. And there was some, well, I did that Delta pickup mod as well the other day. That's still able to be turned on as well. So yeah, I've got quite a lot of mods active at the minute. So again, feels like it's not quite winding up through the gears as much as I'd be expecting, but I still don't feel like it's underpowered as such. There was just the odd little patch where, yeah, like now, I don't see why it's not winded up through the gears, and I'm not sure if that's like the terrain itself. There is certain areas on various maps that are a little bit more excessive than you would expect from the look of them. Super snow and super mud. The loaf, he was headbutting some trees, he finally flew off to the side. And this is a section where I've got to turn left. I can kind of see now, they've put as usual two lots of trees or whatever right on the corner of a sharp turn, so I'm just going to kind of cut through here, try and make life a little easier. I'm turning left now. That probably didn't help catching my tyre on there, but as you can see, look, understeering. So I release the truck behind me, just, yeah. It's sort of definitely not helping there, because my front end's kind of dropped off over the side of that little log, like, roadway or whatever. Yeah, the weight of my logs and the trailer is kind of keeping my back end very planted, so it's sort of holding my front end up in the air. So it took a little bit of jiggling, zigzagging. Again, I probably could have approached that corner a little bit better. I did kind of clip my tyre on that telegraph pole that pulled my my steering round to the right a little bit. It's close, just about squeezed our way through. I'm just going to drive ahead a little bit because I'm going to have to go and get that other truck through. Although this, coming up the other truck, I believe the footage, again, it glitched, but all I did was drive around the corner, the trailer tipped really far, for no apparent reason. You'll see it various times tonight, where the medium trailer just tips, like, practically lays on its side for no apparent reason, really. And then, yeah, there's where I had to disconnect the loaf. You can see my logs are unpacked and they slid far enough back in the trailer that I can't repack them, which is a bit of a pain in the arse because I've not got a logging crane either. So this is the only way I know kind of to get around that. Let's drive at this tree. Wabam. Spring them forward a little bit. Actually worked out very nicely, if I do say so myself. First attempt, I was pretty happy with the results there. Yeah, before, obviously, I had to cut the loaf loose, but he fueled me up, repaired me, and I've still got the radar trailer in the log thing. I know I can't use it, but it should still have about 80 litres of fuel in it, because I think I used it twice by this point. And I could have faffed around, I could have got the loaf back onto the roof, I could have got the logging crane off this and blah blah. I just couldn't be bothered. He's a goddamn professional. He made it as far as he could, but yeah. If I could pack trucks, like I say, if I could pack a truck that's got a trailer, or a Scout that's got a trailer, I could have done that mission a lot easier. So I was trying to wing it a bit, and yeah, it worked pretty well. Pretty happy with the results. It certainly got me far enough to where I could use all the fuel out of the loaf. Near enough topped it up back to full, and I've got plenty of fuel now to make it to my destination. So this is the drilling site that I think you have to bring various things here at some point. Maybe one day I'll get around to them. I'm not sure if I'll ever complete the mod playthrough. I've got most missions on my normal playthrough done. And I would like to get 100%, get the old platinum one day. I'm not sure though, like, maybe someone could let us know. I'd appreciate it. Like, because I've now got the season pass, do I also need to complete all the missions on the season pass stuff to complete the game 100%? Because then, let's say I didn't have the season pass, I'd never have access to any of them, and I assume I could just 100% the game with, like, the base game, none of the DLC stuff, but I don't know, I'm not sure if it actually makes a difference or not. Yeah, a bit understeery round there. The nice thing is, once you're actually going in a nice arc, like, because they're both articulated and all the rest of it, and I've kind of got little segments, like, I've got this truck with articulation, then I've got the log trailer, then the Azov Barbos with articulation, then that's got a trailer. It's it does snake around quite nicely. And it's not going too bad at the minute. We're getting fairly far down the map. There was a little area where, like I said, I ended up driving a little bit too far past. I wanted to take like a right-hand turn somewhere, but I overshot the corner, and long story short is, like, this is just way too long of a setup to try and reverse back up the road. Whoa. I'd happily reverse both of these trucks back up the road. It's the medium log trailers. They're just impossible to reverse. Even if I locked the dolly pivot axle thing, they're still a little bit sketchy. It helps, but yeah. I was like, hell no. I'll go the slightly longer route. To be fair, this longer route might actually have, like I said, worked out a little bit better, because the road was actually a lot more kind of straight and it flowed a bit better. The road I was going to take, even though it's technically the shorter route, it was, looking back at it, is a little bit kind of janky and zigzagged and all sorts. Good old Loaf on top, he's hanging on, he's doing well. Good thing is I was able to pack him, so he's going to hang on for dear life. He's only coming off if I tip, really. So yeah, you can see there, I'm uncovering it as I'm going down. That's where I missed the road. I wanted like that one. There is a few sweeping S-bends up here to get round, but yeah, for the most part, it probably was the best option. At some point as well, I can't remember if I've already done it, I took 79 odd fuel out of the loaf and put it in this Azov bear. Still not drained the roof rack yet. You have to unpack it to drain the roof rack. Again, it's a little bit of a pain, but it's not the end of the world. Loaf, he doesn't like handing out the fuel unless he's in charge of it. But no one gets my fuel unless you're driving me. Seems reasonable. See, going around here though, it's like a nice sweeping S-bend, and it, yeah, went pretty nicely. For the most part, I haven't had to really look behind and make sure the Azov Barbos, or whatever it's called, isn't catching trees and stuff. It sort of follows my line pretty well for the length of this whole train setup. It's probably one of the longer, heavier trains I've done. And this is where it starts to get some serious off-roading. So again, whatever you do this mission with, preferably you want to make sure it's something that's pretty damn good at not tipping. An ANK, for example. I know you can't really have logs on the back of that, but if, for whatever reason, if you had one towing a medium log trailer, yeah, that thing will probably be pretty likely to tip in this kind of environment. We've made it to the beach, though. I can see that cargo container thing up ahead. See, because this thing's got nice big tyres as well, even this, I remember driving through this muddy section like back a while ago on my normal playthrough, and yeah, it was a bit of a beast, to say the least. So it gets pretty tippy there. It gets worse than like that place. I was like, bloody hell. Thought I nearly sank my cab off, like nearly broke its neck, twisted it off sideways. Loaf leaning pretty far, and again, it's staying fairly planted. I'm kind of not steering the way I want to go. See that log trailer? How low it went. I'm amazed it didn't unpack itself at that point. That must have been like a degree off doing it. I think, yeah, the rear log trailer as well, that went for its own little lean-in session at the back there, and it stayed on as well, thankfully. At this point, I'm pretty close now. I was wondering, like, oh, I wonder if the fuel will make it. Again, I've still got more roof rack fuel, but it would have been nice to just drop the hammer and get there without having to faff around with that. There's an invincible tree right on the edge of the roadway. There is definitely a slightly sadistic joy that some of the devs clearly get from putting trollish obstacles here, there and everywhere where they know it'll bite you. It's looking good so far though. What have we had there? Yeah, my medium log trailer on this, that unpacked itself. The Azov Barbos thing behind me has actually been pretty solid. Its trailer's not... Oh no, sorry, its trailer did tip. I take that back. It did. We had to do the little rammer tree thing to get it, yeah, get it packed again. Basically, I should have probably gone to the right there because it's a little bit straighter, but I just overshot it a tiny bit and was like, well, we've gone too far. Couldn't possibly reverse a whole 2 meters. See it just understeering like crazy there. Just don't hit that tree. We made it. Once we flop back to that side, it suddenly grips in pretty well and we're good to go. There's the ship. I was just looking like, god damn it, we won't have enough fuel. This last run through that watery section, I just knew would not be letting me get through it with, what, 14 litres to go. Not a chance. But of course, got a goddamn professional with us. Timed perfectly. By the way, I passed 2 fuel stations coming here, and I easily could have gone into them. I remembered them, all the rest of it. I had faith that my loafs had enough fuel for me to make the journey. And I like random little limiters, weird things that I do. with each mission. Long story short, it wouldn't let me repack the loaf. I have no idea why. Maybe because it was leaning a bit, but I got the crane, kind of opened the pincers, pinned him down onto the top a little bit. I didn't have high hopes for that, to be honest, because, yeah, I didn't. And then especially when I drove into it, flopped that way, understeered pretty bad. Oh, I didn't realise it glitched there, apologies, but as you can see, my right tyre kind of hit that rock. I tipped very far. The loaf, like a goddamn professional, dived off there before the whole road train started tipping, really. So he took one for the team, but I've used his repairs, used his fuel, and I'm out. He can handle his own business. He's all good. But yeah, overall, I quite like both of these, to be honest. I certainly wouldn't say they feel OP as well. They feel, obviously, at the higher end of like in-game trucks, but they still feel within the same realm of balancing and all the rest of it. They're not just absolute guaranteed OP mode. I didn't realise at this point. It took my logs for the trailer. Yeah, it's that thing where, like, once you've got them in the medium log cradle, it just lets you unload as many as you like. So, turns out I didn't need that rear road train thing, which I'm glad I brought it, by the way. Yeah, at least in my own head, I did the mission as intended. Well, I'll probably have to do this mission again at some point, because I'm not sure if I've done this one on my my main playthrough without mods. But yes, overall, it was a pretty good, pretty fun mission. Didn't have too many things go wrong. And these things were pretty well suited to it, like I said, massive tyres and all the rest of it. Yeah, so it went pretty well. I had a few little minor things, a few log unpackings, but nothing special. The loaf in the background, he's all good. He's having the time of his life. He'll rescue himself, you see. Yeah, the orange Azov, the bear, was probably my favourite one because it's just bigger, looks cooler, can fit more on. But yeah, they're both pretty cool. So anyway, that's about it for today, though. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf, of course, and I'll be back soon.